I'll try to get
خب نوبتی هم باشه. نوبتی یک گیم خیلی کیوپیه. گوش شد چه بچه از جیمکسر هستم. خوش اومدید به لیتس پلی از گیم جابز. نمیدونم دقیقا نمیدونم چیه، ولی اینو میدونم که خیلی کریپیه. خیلی کریپیه. ما شروع میکنیم. گیمینگ هم که همه عاشق چیزای کریپیه. اوکی اوکی.
penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no more, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid sun.
Okay.
Do not think from my slavery.
چقدر این گیم کریپیه.
These hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
صدارم زیاد کنیم قشنگ. Let's go.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of
اوکی ما سوار کشتی میشیم.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation. So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration.
چه اتفاقی داره میفته دقیقا نمیفهم. باید با قایق ما بریم به یه جایی، حالا نمیدونم کجا دقیقا.
So liberal indeed was the discipline
و
of our
شیطانی
captors.
ترین
5
گیمی
days
که
after we
تونستم
were
گیر
taken,
بیارم
I managed
همین
to
گیم
escape
بود.
alone in a small
میگه تک و تنها باید بری یه جایی.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never
Okay.
a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
اصلا حواسم نبود صدای میکروفونم کم.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight. The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to
اصلا نمیفهم داره چه اتفاقی میفته.
Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled.
ای دهن تو پدر سگ. اوه.
When at last I awoke, and in
چندش
I grounded some distance away.
پدر سگ.
Though one might, for there was
نمیخوام برو.
putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish
ای.
and other less describable things. Perhaps there was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. The sun was blinking.
دهن تو. ای
As I crawled
اوه
into
اینا
the
رو یوتیوب
stranded
گیر
boat,
میده.
I realized that only one theory could
اینا
explain
همه
my
رو
position.
یوتیوب گیر میده.
Through so great, nor were there any
نمیخوام گوش کنم. سری سیکسی کن. در سعی. این ماهی اوکیه ولی این
For
هشبا
several
میاد.
hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
من خیلی از این چیزا
As the day
چندش هم میشه.
progressed,
جدی
the
میگم.
ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed like... That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food.
میگه باید واسه خودمون غذا و اینا جور کنیم. این توی
On the
پکمون
third morning,
هستش.
I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was
بعد
too
از
much
ظهر
concerned
شده.
with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out.
وای اینا چیه؟ گفتم یه گیم خیلی
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than...
استخون چیه دیگه؟ قتل کردیم اگه پدر سگ. ای وی.
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
خفه شو بابا. میگه چیزای بدتری هم در انتظارت باشه.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher.
گیمش خیلی بال. فقط با موس داری کار میکنی.
An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Let's go.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night. But ere the waning fantastically gibbous
داره
moon
اوضاع
had risen far
خیلی
above the eastern
باریک
plain,
میشه دیگه.
I was awake in a cold perspiration.
واو.
Such vision, and in the glow, without the glare of the parching sun, my
Aye.
journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
اوکی. کدوم گوری الانی؟ این پایین.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of
پاکو
the
الان باز
rolling
کردم.
plains was a
بعدش
source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit
من
of the
دو تا
mound
گیم درست
and
حسابی
looked down
پلی
the other
دادم.
side into
واقعا
an
من
immeasurable pit
ترسیدم
or
توش.
canyon.
یکی خیلی چندشه نه ترسناک. یکی هم گیم میسینگ هایکر توی چنل اصلی پلی داده بودیم. اونم خیلی ترسناک بود.
Whose black recesses the moon had
این
not yet
چندشه
soared high
بیشتر.
enough. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the... As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
وای لب صخره.
Ledges and outcroppings of
او
rock
کجا
afforded
میری؟
fairly easy
یا
footholds for a descent.
خدا.
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity...
از یه لحاظی اگه بهش نگاه کنیم آره واقعا کریپیه، ولی بیشتر من چندش هم اومد. الان هم یه خورده دارم لحاظ دارک بودنش دارم میگم. عجیب
Urged on
غریبه
by an
دارک
impulse which I
خیلی
cannot definitely
بچه
analyze,
تاریکی
I
داره
scrambled
گیمش.
with difficulty, gazing into the Stygian deeps. All at once, my attention was captured by an object that gleamed whitely.
Okay, let's go. Oh,
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon. But I was a closer.
این کولر برای کی روشنه الان نمیفهمم. در که بسته است.
For despite its enormous magnitude,
میگه کولر رو
its
خاموشش
position
کن.
in an abyss which
هیچ وقت من نداره.
I perceived beyond, whose massive dazed
دست همه
and
درد
frightened,
گرفته.
yet the moon, now
چه
near the
عجب.
zenith, shone
آب.
weirdly and vividly above and revealed the
مایه زندگی.
across the on whose surface I could now trace both
ای حواسم
inscriptions
نیست که این
and
اسکیپو
crude
میزنم.
sculptures.
میره برای خودش. نه الان اون بالا باز چی باید بریم ما؟
The writing was
وی 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 وی
and
وی
unlike
وی.
anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventional. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
Okay.
Those decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the
Okay. Question. They don't count into your meaning. Demand the street of drinks. Wait. Did love it? You love him to work so much. Telling the store. Okay. No. Let's give it.
plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects were
بچه این
excited
گوشش نه
beyond
باگ
array.
نخورد. اجازه فکر کردم باگ خورده.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying of their faces and forms I dare not speak in
من خیلی
detail,
دوست دارم بفهمم آخرش چی میشه.
for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite glassy
وای فضانوردا
and other features
فضانوردا
I recall.
چه سوتی بود من دادم آدم فضایی ها رو.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than him. I remarked. But
این
in a
من که
moment
باشه
decided
این دکمه رو میگیرم اینجوری فقط بره چون میخوام ببینم تهش چی میشه.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then,
پشمام.
suddenly, I saw it,
من فقط میتونم بگم پرچم ریخت.
with only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface.
و خیلی جالب هرچی هم میریم جلوتر FPS هم میاد پایین تر. چیزی که من شنیده بودم این که این گیم کامپیوتر رو هک میکنه. یادم رفته بود بگم. ببین به خدا جاب اسکرین داشته باشی خشکت میکشن رو کلت.
Like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
ببین هر گوی بخوای بخوری بخور. وای اینو
about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms. The while it bowed its hideous head, it gave vent to slow, measured sounds.
وای رفتیم زیر آب. Mister, I am galactic playing in game. چی گفت؟ اسکیپ هم نمی کنم. رفت.
I think I went mad then.
دارم آروم یواش یواش تو قلبم
Of my frantic ascent of the slope.
خب اوضاع کش.
I believe I sang a great.
بعد من هدست هم گذاشتم یه قابلیت های مختلف داره. قابلیت 3 بعدی داره، 8 بعدی داره. من گذاشتم روی 8 بعدی برای اینکه اصلا گیم رو خیلی بهتر بفهمم. گذاشتم روی 8 بعدی. این هر صدای کلمه بیاد 8 بعدی مثلا همینجا استفاده دیگه اوج ریدن. چی شد الان؟ گیم کرش کرد. مرسی که تا اینجا ویدیو همراه بودین. لایک کامنت سابسکرایبتون نره. گیم هم کرش کرد نمیشه. عشق من خودتون رو راحت کنیم. ماچو